A couple of weeks ago, something happened that completely caught me off guard. My nephew Ethan asked me something so unexpected that it left me speechless. At first, I thought it was crazy, maybe even wrong. But when I took a step back and really thought about it, I realized it was one of the most profound moments of my life. It was exciting, confusing, and life-changing all at once. Let me take you back to where it all began. It was a typical family weekend. The house was filled with laughter, the smell of home-cooked food, and the comforting chaos of loved ones reuniting. My sister Rachel had come over with her family for a long-overdue visit. Her son Ethan, my 20-year-old nephew, was there too. Ethan and I have always had a special bond. Over the years, he's grown from an awkward teenager into a confident young man, and I've always been proud of the person he's becoming. That evening after dinner, the house settled into a peaceful rhythm. The kids were playing in the living room, and Rachel and her husband were chatting on the back porch. Ethan and I ended up in the kitchen, cleaning up after the meal. It was one of those quiet, serene moments where time seemed to slow down. "You make the best lasagna, Aunt CLA," Ethan said, leaning against the counter with a grin. I laughed, swatting him lightly with a dish towel. "Flattery won't get you anywhere, Ethan." But he wasn't done. "I'm serious. You're everyone's favorite cook. Mom could learn a thing or two from you." I rolled my eyes, but his compliment made me smile. As I turned back to the sink, I could feel his gaze on me. It wasn't unusual. Ethan's always been observant, but tonight, it felt different. Heavier. Like there was something on his mind he couldn't quite put into words. "Do you need something?" I asked, trying to keep my tone light. He hesitated, and when I turned to face him, his usual confidence was replaced with something more vulnerable. "Can we talk?" he asked quietly. I nodded, drying my hands on a towel. "Of course. What's on your mind?" He took a deep breath, his fingers drumming lightly against the countertop. "I don't know how to say this, but I feel like you're the only person I can talk to about it." My heart softened. "Whatever it is, Ethan, you can tell me. I'm here for you." He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "Lately, I've been feeling lost. Like I'm stuck between being a kid and figuring out how to be an adult, and I don't know if I'm doing any of it right." His words hit me hard. Ethan had always seemed so self-assured, but now, seeing this vulnerable side of him, I felt a surge of protectiveness. I stepped closer, placing a comforting hand on his shoulder. "That's completely normal," I said gently. "Growing up isn't easy, and there's no manual for it. You're doing just fine, Ethan." He looked up at me, his eyes filled with gratitude. "Thanks, Aunt CLA. That means a lot." For a moment, we just stood there, the world outside fading away. There was an unspoken connection between us, something deeper than the usual aunt-nephew bond. It was a moment I'll never forget. As the evening went on, I couldn't shake the memory of that moment in the kitchen. The way Ethan had opened up to me, the way his vulnerability had touched me, it stayed with me long after he'd gone to bed. The next morning, the house was alive with the usual morning chaos. Ethan appeared in the kitchen, his hair still messy from sleep. "Morning, Aunt CLA," he said, pouring himself a cup of coffee. "Good morning," I replied, trying to act normal, though my heart was racing. We didn't talk much that day, but I could feel the tension between us. It was like an invisible thread, pulling us closer even as I tried to keep my distance. That night, as the house quieted down, Ethan and I found ourselves alone again in the living room. "Do you ever feel like you're just going through the motions?" he asked suddenly, his voice thoughtful. I paused, surprised by the question. "Sometimes," I admitted. "Why do you ask?" He shrugged, his expression pensive. "I don't know. Lately, it feels like everyone expects me to have it all figured out, but I'm just coasting, doing what's expected without really knowing if it's what I want." His words struck a chord within me. "You're not alone in that, Ethan. Life has a way of pushing us in certain directions, but it's okay to take your time figuring out what's right for you." He nodded, his gaze steady on mine. That's what I like about you, Aunt CLA. You get it. You don't pretend to have all the answers, but you always seem to know the right thing to say. His sincerity caught me off guard, and I felt a warmth rise in my cheeks. Thank you, Ethan. That means a lot. As the night went on, the tension between us grew. It was like we were both standing on the edge of something neither of us could fully understand. And then, in a moment of vulnerability, Ethan confessed something that changed everything. Aunt CLA, he said, his voice quiet but firm. I can't stop thinking about you. You've always been there for me, and I feel like you're the only person who truly understands me. His words left me speechless. I knew what he was saying was wrong, so wrong, but there was a part of me that couldn't deny the connection we shared. Ethan, this isn't right, I said, my voice trembling. We can't. But he reached for my hand, his touch gentle but grounding. Tell me you don't feel it too, he said quietly. Tell me and I'll stop. I wanted to deny it, to push him away, but the truth was undeniable. In that moment, I let myself feel what I'd been trying to ignore.